Hi everybody, thank you for joining us. Uh, I, I want to first thank San Antonio Magazine for putting this together. I'm very grateful for the opportunity. Welcome to my kitchen, and I want to thank everybody in advance for all the knife work that I asked for. If you did that, that's a tremendous amount of knife work. The reason for today's class, when they asked me to put on the class, I was thinking about the current circumstance with the shutdown, and it's hard to get groceries, and there are lines all over the place, and I wanted to revisit the story that people like my grandmother lived. I was thinking about World War II and food shortages and lines. I also remember lots of references from the book by MFK Fisher, How to Cook a Wolf. And they're all about how to make the most of what you have and how to stretch things for as far as they can possibly go. And that was my grandmother's upbringing. She grew up during the Great Depression in Oklahoma on a farm, and they had to cook chicken over and over and over again. So when you have limited resources, when things are hard to get, then you try to make them go for as long as you possibly can, feed as many people as you can, and make the food as interesting as possible. So I started with a chicken, and I didn't want to add more punishment to the prep list that I've already asked for. So I wanted to start with something that was already available in a grocery store, and I bought a 2-pound roasted chicken from the grocery store. Don't worry, there's going to be plenty to do. So if you followed the instructions up to this point, then you've already had a pot. You've taken a pot like this one here, and you have a roasted chicken. You take all the skin and the bones off, and then all the skin and the bones, the scraps, go into the pot, and then you save all of the chicken meat, all the little bits that you can get off of it, and we've shredded those in a couple of these preparations, this one, and the rest of it, dark meat, the wing, the leg. I've saved all of that just kind of rough, and we'll deal with that much later. So up to this point on your kitchen table, you should already be looking at the first stock. The first stock should be done. When I did mine, I let it go a little too far. I was downstairs and I forgot. So I got this much of the first chicken stock, and this one, it could be about 3 cups maybe, not quite a quart by the time you're done with it. This one has no onion and no aromatics in it, so there's nothing swinging it any particular direction. It's very neutral. So if you wanted to use this kind of chicken stock for an Asian preparation or Mexican preparation, something South American or Italian, it'll swing any way you want it to. It's very neutral. So we're going to use those in a couple different directions. And then you have, oops, getting them out of order. Once you've made the stock, then I wanted you to put the skin and the bones back into this pot, and this is where we start the class. So under the French historical cooking method of saving everything, and you turn absolutely every last crumb of food into something that you can put on the menu, then they make a second stock after the first stock. So this is the one that you expect to pay the bills with, and then this second stock is for something that doesn't require so much flavor. It's not quite the same strong, pure chicken flavor, but there's still a little bit of goodie left in it, so they don't throw this away. So this is called a remouillage. Remouillage is re-wetting of the bones. I'm going to put this back on the fire. Right now they're still kind of warm. They're kind of lukewarm right now, and I'm going to pour the cold water over them. And you want to get the most out of these because they're already partially cooked. They're cooked until the point that the gelatin in the skin and the connective tissue between the joints is still very soft. So I want to get all the goodies out from between all of those bones, and I want to make the pieces much smaller. So I take this over the fire. And I happen to have a glove. If you don't have a glove, you could use a spoon. but I really think the best tool is your own hands, because you can feel what you're doing. I pour 1 1/4 quarts of water into the bones. If you just strained it, if the bones are still hot, then a little bit of cold water will cool it off enough. Come forward so you can see what's going on in here. So I want to crunch all those bones apart. I want to get all the goodie out from between all those joints, so that I'm getting the absolute most that this chicken can give me. So I break up all those pieces, and then I get a maximum extraction out of them. This one is not going to have the same pure flavor. It's not going to be as powerful as the first stock was. So I have to crank this one up a little bit, and that's why I've added some extra stuff here. I have a bay leaf and a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, a little bit of salt. So we're already kind of going to Europe here. Once you put the black pepper in there, then it's you're kind of choosing the direction. But what we're going to do with this is make a soup that the chicken is not the star of the show. It's going to be a spinach soup. You could do it with any other kind of vegetable, and the chicken is just a background. What you're getting is the silky texture and a little bit of background flavor from the chicken. I took the whole peel off of an onion, and I left the root end intact here so that they're a little bit easier to get together. I want to keep this onion. After I cook the remouillage, I'm going to keep this onion. It will be part of the soup in the end. I don't throw this away either. In the French tradition, the all the cooking that happens up here, as much as you can get your ingredients to go, is honorable, and the dishonor comes when anything goes into here. That's the absolute worst place. This is failure to a French chef. The Japanese feel the same way. In Japanese, they call that mottainai, which is shameful waste. So you want to turn as much of that into food for people to honor the product. So the remouillage, I want to bring it up to a boil just so it gets cooking. Remouillage doesn't take as long to cook as the first stock, because all the ingredients have already been cooked, so we're just kind of washing the bones. We're getting all the last little bit of goodie out. I'll bring this up to a simmer, and I'll bring it up to a boil and turn it down, and then I'll let this simmer for about 30 minutes. So this is okay by itself, and this is going to be used later on in the program. While we do this, I'm going to make the Asian salad. All right. Sorry. Okay. So if you've done your knife work properly, this is what you should have, something like this. This is the breast. This is chicken breast. I have to confess that chicken breast is my least favorite part of the animal. I absolutely hate chicken breast. If chickens came with 4 legs, I think it would be great. So when you have chicken breast, it's very dry and it's shreddy, and it doesn't have the same eating quality. It doesn't have the fat content and the ligament and connective tissue that makes things like dark meat taste really good. So this has to be soaked with other flavorful things, and it needs to be filled. You've got all these empty spaces, the shreddy parts, and it's chalky if you eat it just like itself. So what I want to do is make a flavorful base, and then I'll soak all of these other ingredients in that flavorful base. This one is basically a Chinese profile, and what I'm going to do is make an aromatic oil with pepper flakes. They're quite spicy. If you don't like spicy, you could do the same thing with paprika. You would get a lot of the same effect. This is very thinly sliced garlic, and here's minced ginger. Fresh ginger, please. Don't use powdered ginger. Don't use canned garlic. It is terrible. All of the canned garlic in the world should be packed into a rocket and fired at the sun, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to take this over and turn the fire on my wok. And in this kind of preparation, I want not all the way hot. I'm turning it up full blast right now just so that I get the pan good and tempered, and I would like the oil to be at least 300 degrees before I start putting all the aromatics in. That is 3 tablespoons. I think I said 3 tablespoons of vegetable oil. What kind of vegetable oil you have doesn't make any difference, so long as it's flavorless cooking oil, soybean oil, peanut oil, corn oil, it's all the same stuff. Then I have garlic, and I like a lot of garlic. It's important that it's very, very thin, and it's the most important thing is that they're all the same thickness. You want them to cook at the same speed. If you have one thick piece and one thin piece, and the thick one is going to be raw, and the thin one is going to be burnt. So try to keep it consistent. I'm doing just like a teaspoon of pepper flakes. And I had, this is a little bit more than 2 ounces of ginger, but I want it to be something like 2 ounces of ginger. Come take a look, please. So I put all of those aromatic ingredients. I'm going to turn the fire down now that I had the temperature up. And I stir them around because I want them to all cook pretty close to the same speed. The red peppers, any of those dried red peppers will, when you drop those in the oil, then the things that make the pepper red, they become oil soluble. You cook all the water out. And then you'll start to flavor and color the oil with that chili. Paprika does the same thing. Right now, the cooking is going to go slow because there's a lot of water in the ginger and the garlic, and anything that contains water can't go any higher than 212 degrees. So that's important. As the water starts to cook out of these and you start to see some golden bits happening, when you start to see some golden coloration going around the outside, then you need to be careful, because between golden, you've got just seconds before the whole thing goes black. You want something that's water-based to stop the cooking all of a sudden. I have soy sauce here, and I'm going to use the soy sauce to stop the cooking right away. I'll turn off the fire, and then this is the way that I hit pause on the cooking. If you look over here, my remouillage is up to a boil, and now I'm turning it down so that it's just gentle. I want it to go for half an hour, let it go nice and easy. Now I've got nice golden brown color. I turn off this heat, and then I want to stop the cooking. Don't do this with the fire on. Turn the fire off first before you put anything water-based in there. If it splashes, it can make a fire. Very dangerous. So I roll that around, and I slow down that cooking. Okay, so now the fire is stopped and the cooking is on pause. This is as far as I want to go with the garlic. Basically, the preparation in this is done. I'm going to add some sugar now while it's still hot, while the liquid is hot. Tablespoon is what I said? Something like that. And if you look down in that liquid, you can see that most of the soy sauce, if you look inside the spoon, most of the soy sauce is boiled away because it hit boiling point. So at this point, it's like a flavor base. It's a dressing, and it's really, really concentrated. And to this, I want to add all my other goodies. Do this part last. The cabbage is very, very fine, super, super fine. And I want to maintain that crunch. I want it to taste very refreshing. So if you throw this in at the beginning, then it's going to be limp and dead by the time you get to the preparation. Rather, I want to start with something that takes a long time to break down. And I found this technique that I like with carrots, that you don't have to have a fancy knife and you don't have to own one of those like kachuk sort of machines. I'm going to peel the outside of the carrot. Just to take all the nasties off. And then for the rest of the carrot, if you want it to be very thin, delicate knife work, so to speak, but that's easy to do, take your peeler and just take little kachucks like this. I turn the carrot every once in a while, so I'm sort of sharpening it like a pencil. When I wrote the recipe, my carrots were smaller, so I said 2 carrots because that was about 4 ounces. But basically you want like a good a good heaping handful of carrot stuff. You don't want it to be too overpowering. I'm probably not going to use this whole carrot. So those little bitty flakes of carrot will break down nicely when they touch the marinade, and the salt will sink into them on both sides. And you'll get kind of like that wilted salad, like a wilted spinach effect. Have you seen that in restaurants? Where they have the wilted spinach and goat cheese and walnuts and all of that kind of thing. Okay. So I think that's probably enough carrot. I don't want it to be a carrot salad. And I toss all that together to incorporate while it's still hot, because the carrot is brittle and kind of sharp. So I let that soak in the sauce first, and that breaks down the tissue of the carrot, the plant cells in the carrot. They start to collapse and it'll start to get more tender. Right now would be a good time to add the chicken, because there's lots of sauce and there's lots of oil in the bottom of the bowl. As we get toward these ingredients here, I need less dressing. I don't need as much dressing as I wanted with the chicken. So I want the chicken to soak up as much of the goodies as possible. Okay. So now they're all getting soaked up. You've got that dry, shreddy chicken soaking up all the goodies. At this point, I have sesame oil here, toasted sesame oil. I really prefer Kadoya brand sesame oil. If you get the ones that are like the store brand, they're not anywhere near as good. So this is really the only brand that I swear by. I didn't put this in the beginning because this is it's like an extra virgin oil. This is pressed, and it still has all of the natural characteristics from the sesame seeds in it. And if I threw this in at the beginning with high temperature, then I'm killing all that sharp flavor. So I want it to stay very perfumey. So I wait until I have a cool base to work with. And once it's cooled off, then I'll add the oil so I get all of the perfume. I get all the bang for my buck. The other ingredients in no particular order. I have some thinly sliced bell pepper and the cabbage. I want to toss it well enough that I get seasoning on all the bits of cabbage. Now I said 2 to 3 tablespoons on the soy sauce because I have a salty palate, so I would use all 3 tablespoons of soy sauce without even looking. but you might like less salt than that. I'm about to reveal the most important cooking tool in any kitchen, home kitchen or professional kitchen. It is this, a tasting spoon. You should always taste your food. Never serve any food you don't know what it tastes like before you serve anybody else. Whenever I'm cooking in one of my restaurants, I've tasted your food an average of 7 times before you ever see it. So if the food gets to the table and it tastes bad, then that is the absolute worst crime that a chef can commit. I like it. Salt content is nice. Oil content is nice. So this is a meal for easily 2 people. If you had a couple of sides, you might have enough for 4 people here. Could I get that washed, please? I have some green onion, some scallion. I'm gonna garnish with scallion on top, and a little bit of cilantro. And there you go, dish number 1. Spicy Asian chicken salad. Come back and take a look at the remoulade real quick. If you look at the remoulade, the onions are starting to break down. So they're getting softer, and you're extracting all of that ghee out of the last of the chicken bones. So I'm going to turn this down. That's almost done. That's almost where we want it. And the onions should be soft. Once the onions are soft, when you break all of those plant cells, then they start extracting and it gets into the water. So then that flavor will be transferred to the final thing that we're cooking. You don't have to use this for soup. Remoulade has got all kinds of uses in a professional kitchen. You can use it as a base for a braise if you do pork shoulder, or you want to put a chicken in a pot with potatoes and onions and do kind of a pot roast. Then this is a flavorful cooking liquid that you can use as a base. You get it for free. All right. I need that pan. Andreas, can I get that pan back? Oh. All right. Didn't think about needing a second pan. Sorry, hang on. All right. Asian chicken salad done. I'm going to use the same pan for the next preparation. This works well. This is a real handy tool to have if you have something like this, because you can flip things in it, and it holds enough stuff that it's very flexible. If you don't have a wok, then any kind of a shallow saucepan would work about the same way. But now we're taking the same pan. We're going to Mexico instead. Sorry about the technical issue. I think we're back. So I tried to do some things in the meantime so that we're not too late. I didn't want to run too far over. I used the same pan, and I took the ancho chili that we chopped very fine, and I put it in the pan. About half of that fire. Don't want it to be too strong. I don't want it burnt. I just want it toasted. So there's nothing else in the pan. It's totally dry, and I'm cooking it until I start to smell some smoky, toasty kind of notes. I would like that to be even all the way over. We're doing kind of like a fast-forward version of a mole, and for that I wanted to get the flavor of the dried chilies, and the rest of it we're kind of kick-starting it forward so that you don't have to spend all day with the food processor and molcajete and the pile of dishes. So this is nice and toasty, and I like this color. I'm gonna stop the cooking for the chili here, and pour it into a separate container. Doesn't really matter what. So it's not burnt. It's just kind of toasted, and it's very, very dry. We've also, by cooking it a little bit dry, we've developed the sugars and we've made it more complex. To this pan, I put some, excuse me. I have some oil, about 3-4 tablespoons, I would say. And this one, I want to be very, very dark, so all the way up. Dark, smoky notes, kind of like grill marks. Think grill mark kind of flavor on the onions and garlic and aromatic stuff beforehand, so that all those flavors will get sucked up into the chicken stock as a foundation. While we do that, I'm going to toast off a couple of tortillas. I'm just going to do 2 tortillas because I think, just in the interest of time, but this makes about 10 tacos worth of filling. If you have some chopped vegetables and you have a couple kinds of sauce or salsa, then this will be very satisfying for probably tacos. Put the tortillas there. Okay. So I have my onion. I want to put the onions first, not the garlic. The reason that I keep the garlic back is because garlic has a lot of sugar in it, and they have less, the onion has less sugar, the garlic has more sugar. If I put them both in at the same time, then these will turn brown before the onions do. I want to give the onions a little head start. Really, really high temperature. I want to get scorch marks. While that's getting some color, I'm going to strain my remoulade. So if you take a look, we have some kind of smoky, the character from the last of the chicken has gotten absorbed into the water, and the onions are still, they're pretty tender now, and I'm going to save as much of this as I possibly can. That's going to go into my last preparation. Thank you, Andreas. So I'm going to pour this through a strainer. Okay. And now I think the French would be proud of me. Checking on my onion. I don't quite have color yet. It's starting to turn a little bit gold, but I want more color than that. I really want deep, dark scorch marks on there. Need a separate container, a bowl. I want to gently pull out the onions. The reason that I had you leave the root on is so that we can take them out easy and you don't have to fish around for them a whole bunch. And then this too can become food for somebody. All right. Good enough. Oops, I burnt them. Andreas, could you keep an eye on the tortillas, please? All right. Where did you go? Okay. So now we're on our remoulade, and it's time to say goodbye. Thank you, chicken. I appreciate you. So this is the remouillage that's left, and these are the onions that came out of the same stock. I'm going to put those together, and that's going to be the basis of. Let's take another look at the onion now. Come on back. Okay, that's what I want to see. I want there to be nice dark scorching marks. You see, the sugar that's in the onion is a simple sugar. It's fructose, just like it's very similar in chemical structure to granulated sugar, like you would put in your coffee in the morning. As you cook something that has sugar in it, once you cook it past the point of 212 degrees when all the water leaves, then the sugar turning color gives you way deeper, more complex flavor. So where it was just a spoonful of sugar before, you start to taste notes of popcorn and smoke and toast, and it gets to be much more interesting. So I'm looking for these deep, dark bits of color that's going to flavor the chicken stock, and that'll in turn be the backbone of the flavor in my taco. This is about the right amount of color. I'm going to add my garlic now. And I like comino, so I'm going to use a pretty fat pinch, like 3-finger pinch. I tilt the pan back a little. If you please take a close look there. I want to fry that comino in a little pocket over there. So it starts to get brown. Again, it's developing the flavor. It's making it darker and more smoky. Okay. Good. Just that many, just 2, it's fine. Alright. I want a little more color like that. And then we'll go in with all the wet ingredients. Okay. I would like to go 5 more minutes than this, but in the interest of time, I'm going to finish up the taco filling. This is my toasted chile. I put all of that. And I use some paprika, not just to help the color, but I would like to improve the thickness. I want it to kind of hold together. It should have some bulk to it. So I add about a tablespoon of paprika to. That's why the handle's nice. So now the oil that was aromatized with the garlic and the onion and the comino is getting soaked into all the chili stuff. Now I have a nice strong flavor base. Whenever I put the chicken stock in here, then it's going to soak up all that stuff. Here is that first chicken stock. This is about 1 cup of that first stock. And watch yourself. Don't burn yourself when the steam comes out. Stir all that together. Yes. Ah, okay. So what we've just done here, I started with the oil and I cooked the onions until they were dark brown. I finished with the garlic, and I cooked that also until it's golden brown. And then the toasted chilies and a tablespoon of paprika. I put those in the pan and I mixed it all together so that it would flavor the oil. And then once those were mixed together, I added the chicken stock at the end, and I brought all of that to a boil. what's happening is the dried chili was toasted and it's very, very dehydrated. It's very thirsty. So I throw in the chicken stock and it sucks up very, very strong. Now I want this to taste really, really nice before I put the chicken in, because the chicken is like a neutral. The chicken breast is kind of a neutral background. It's just the protein. It's going to taste like the flavor foundation, the base that you put it in. So again, taste, taste, taste. Never serve food you don't know what it tastes like. I like the smoky and bitter notes. I forgot the salt. I'm glad that I checked. So I've got about a teaspoon of salt here. Maybe a little less, maybe a little more. And now those chilies are starting to hydrate, so I get that thick, gloppy, like mole, coating sort of texture that's starting to bloom. Can you see that? And I turn off the fire. I'm gonna check my seasoning one last time now that I've added the salt. Okay, very happy with that. So I take the chicken that I shredded in advance. And I toss to incorporate. Here is pollo con chile. We have a couple of tacos, like so. Let me get a plate. Thank you. This also holds in the fridge really, really nice. I wouldn't put more than that, I think. And cilantro, just a little bit of slivered bell pepper. The flavor base around the chicken is already pretty spicy and pretty flavorful, so I don't think it needs an additional salsa. I would serve it just like that, maybe a little squirt of lime. Dish number 2. Okay, we're a little bit behind because of the previous sound problem. So we're going to try to hurry.
Michael, can you actually recap what you made? Because
Yeah.
the first part of it was like this.
Okay.
Just,
The first part of.
what you were making just now. But
Okay. So this is the pollo con chile. It's a taco filling. You could also use it for any one of a dozen Mexican dishes. This is the dried ancho chili and paprika. We've made a flavor base with the oil, onion, garlic, and comino, and then tossed that all together with the shredded chicken breast at the end. And then I sprinkled sliced red bell pepper and diced tomato and cilantro. It would also go nice with a squirt of lime if you like, and a beer. Okay, moving on. I need. What's that? We're good on time? Okay. So I have a pot here. Stock pot would be fine. Any kind of pot. And the last thing that we're going to make is a veloute. There are. Oh, I forgot one thing. I want to talk about the chicken quesadillas. So as I was cooking my way through all of the chicken, I realized that I had this enormous amount of chicken. If you put it into preparations in this way, so I wanted to show you the quesadillas here that I made a little while ago. I don't have time to demo them, so I just made them because they are delicious. I put a little chili powder and garlic powder and salt in with the filling So it's got a little extra something. At the end of the video, I'm going to show all of my recipes, so that if you want to recreate these, then you can hit pause on the video and you can copy the stuff down. But this is one of the stops on the tour. Okay. So I have my pot getting warm over here, and the veloute is one of the classic mother sauces. You begin with a roux, and it's a roux that's finished with stock. So I have flour and butter here. 3 ounces of butter, I wanted to show you, is just 3/4 of that stick. So it's very convenient if you have butter in stick form. Up like that. And I have about 4 tablespoons of flour here. You can make a dark roux if you're going to do a gravy or a gumbo, but because I want to taste the vegetable, because I want to taste the green vegetable, and I don't want to go very dark with my roux. So I'm just cooking this until the raw smell of the flour is cooked out. And people ask me what that means. What I mean by that, if you've ever walked into a feed store, or if you've opened up a bag of bird feed that smell like grain, or like a grain mill, you cook the flour just until you can't smell that anymore. It smells more like the butter, so you don't get that like raw corn, raw grain smell. That's about enough. There's 2 ways that you can make a veloute, or you can blend things into a roux. One is the hot method, and one is the cold method. I am always in a frantic hurry about everything, so I do hot method for everything all the time. So I take the stock when it's hot and the roux when it's hot, and I blend them together just like this. So I'm going to put the temperature on about medium, maybe. And I start adding a little bit. Watch out for the steam. Don't get hurt. I add a little bit of stock, and I stir that in so that I don't get any clumps. You want it to be all incorporated evenly. I add a little bit more. Watch out for the steam. You see it start to clump. So those are the flour particles that are absorbing all of that boiling liquid. Add a little bit more. And it's still in a paste form. It gets a little bit thinner. Tightens up. I add a little bit more. And now it's starting to look like gravy or the mac and cheese sauce. You're kind of on your way to mac and cheese sauce, really. The mac and cheese sauce, the formal name is sauce mornay. You do the exact same thing, but instead of stock, you use milk. And then when you bring it up to a gravy consistency, you finish it with some kind of a cheese. That's a sauce mornay. That is the mother of mac and cheese. Okay. Now that it's nice and slushy, there's a lot of water content in there, then we don't have to be so careful. We can go the whole thing. It won't break. I stir until I don't see any more big clumps in there. It should be relatively homogeneous. And now I can put the fire back up. I'm not worried about clumping anything. Okay, in your recipe, I made it spinach, and so I stocked spinach in the grocery store that we're selling stuff here at Gwendolyn. We were selling grocery ingredients, and we sold it all, and then I didn't have any. So it's a good opportunity. This recipe will work with any kind of green vegetable, so long as it's very thin. You want it to be delicate so that it cooks really fast. And then we cook it just a minimum until it's soft enough that we can blend. And then when you puree it, then it'll have this very beautiful, brilliant green color. The check the bottom. I don't want the bottom to stick or scorch. Also, if you have not bought pots before, it's definitely preferable that you get a thick bottom pot so that it distributes the heat and you don't get any hot spots. It doesn't scorch. So this is all the way up, and we're pretty much at a boiling point there. So the vegetable that I found was beet greens, and we took the stems off and then we cut it to about an inch. This should cook at about the same speed as the spinach that you have at home. I'll start putting in piles of that now that we're up to a boil. And I want to turn it over and break them. I want to bust open all those cells so that the vegetables lay down. You want all of them to get heat at the same time. You want them all to cook at the same speed. So this is collapsed most of the way. Now I go into the big hunk. There we go. I stir that until it breaks. That's all the way down, and the last little bit. My pound, just like your pound. If it was broccoli, it would still be a pound. It'll work. If you find that your sauce, the soup is too thick, you can adjust this with milk or more chicken stock. I still had more chicken stock left over back there. Mine might not be the same consistency as yours. Spinach has a lot of water in it, so I may have to add a little more milk to mine. I chose not to use any cream in this recipe because the butter foundation is already really heavy, and I wanted the soup to be very light. I wanted it to be delicate and taste the vegetable that it is. Those are starting to break. That's looking good. I didn't turn the heat down. Leave the heat all the way up. Fast. Because I want these all to break as soon as they possibly can, so I preserve that color. If you cook it for a long time, then they'll turn army green. Now that everything is boiling all the same speed, I'll turn around and take the Parmigiano Reggiano that I've cut up. So kind of like a pepper flake in size. You just want it to melt. And this is a bit more than 3 ounces. I think I've got 4 ounces here. If you have an extra ounce left over, use it. Parmigiano Reggiano is the best food there is in the world. It will fix 1,000 mediocre dinners. Okay, I don't know if you can see with the camera shot, but they're starting to get tender. They start to get soft like that. And I'm looking for it to get very soft and delicate. I want as much of that to break down when I blend it as possible. Andreas, could you get me a couple of croutons? Butter, grill them. And that's just about as far as I want to cook mine. I hope that yours is looking about the same. Should have nice, soft, tender leaves like that. Want it to be as broken down as possible. And when I'm satisfied that the leaf is cooked far enough, you can take a little piece of the leaf and see if it crushes gently between your teeth. And right now I have that consistency. The remouillage came out very good, by the way. This is better than my last one. So put the fire off, and right now it's really hot and it's very thick. If you spill this on you, it's gonna stick. It won't go anywhere and you'll get a really bad burn from it. So to make it thinner and to take the temperature down a little bit, I'm pouring in 1 cup of whole milk. Stir that around. It gets a little bit softer, starting to look a bit more like soup. You could eat it just like that. That would be just fine. That would be lovely, actually. I have a teaspoon of salt here. I'm not going to use the whole thing. I'll put about half and see how I feel. And I have some black pepper here, freshly ground black pepper. Please grind your pepper every single day. Don't let me catch you using yesterday's ground pepper. Okay. I mix that in. And this next one, for anybody who knows me, is going to be kind of controversial. I'm using an electric appliance. The reason that I'm doing this is because this is a class for you. It's not a class for me. I wanted this to be something practical that people could actually use. So having one of these is damn convenient. And it makes so much less dishes than the way that I do things. So you probably have something like this at home. Use it. I won't look. You can stop this at any point, but I want to puree it for long enough that I knock out all the big chunks of onion. I don't want there to be a big piece of onion left when I'm done. You have the toast ready? Yes, thank you. And that will do. Thank you. Okay. There's that. The croutons? Okay, cool. And here's a little trick my chef taught me. Whenever you're carrying something across the dish, use a lander. Carry it over something. You can have a small dish like a coffee dish or something that you keep around to rest your spoon on. Then when you're plating, if you don't want to drip, you always carry over something. Go in the bowl. And you can garnish this with anything you like. If you have little oyster crackers, or if you have some bread that's been hanging around too long, you can rub it with garlic and butter and throw it in the broiler, toast it up. Something crunchy, you want a little contrast. And there you go. Okay, so that's the last dish that I'm going to demo, but I wanted to explain all of the preparations that I got out of one chicken. The last one of them was a jambalaya, and I made not just a little one. I didn't make like a little tiny jambalaya. I made like a pot of jambalaya from what was left over. Over here, I have the stuff that I still had left over after making the tacos and the quesadillas and the Asian salad and the soup. So these ingredients plus the ones that I came up with on a separate recipe card, I turned into a New Orleans or Cajun jambalaya. If you have sausage to add to it, it's great. If you have something fancy like tasso, that's also really wonderful. But it makes a very substantial, satisfying meal all by itself, just with the ingredients that we have here. So I guess the overall lesson is not thinking of the meat as like one big hunk. It's like a main dish. think of it more like a seasoning, and then it can go so much further. Also, it gets more interesting. When you just eat a piece of chicken all by itself, or if you have a steak all by itself, then it's very one note. And by using all these other ingredients, you can shift the country. You can change it to a vegetable dish, all different colors. You can have some of them sweet, you can have some of them salty and some spicy. It has so many more facets to it. It's way more flexible when you use the protein as an ingredient, a seasoning, rather than as the main dish. So I'm going to go through for the camera so that you can pause it later on and you can write down these things. I wanted to go through all the recipes that we cooked today, starting with the first stock that you guys made. Once again, just for the camera. First you made a stock. So the first stock is just a neutral stock with 1 quart and 1/4 of water. And I got about 3 cups of stock out of that. You can use those any way you like. I strained that, and then I started a second stock. And I added a little bit of stuff to it. I put the onions, the bay leaves, salt, and pepper to give it a little extra oomph. And then this can be used for slightly less characterful things if the chicken is going to be a background dish. And then we made the Asian chicken salad. I know the ingredient list is long, I'm sorry. I wrote it as small as I could. That looks like this. And that's probably 3 or 4 people worth of food. And then we made pollo con chile taco filling. And then you're probably familiar with quesadillas. If you live in San Antonio, for sure you're familiar with quesadillas, but if you're not, this is a recipe. Those look like this. And then we made the spinach veloute soup, which is this. And the last one, for extra credit, chicken jambalaya. Makes a big old pot. You could feed at least 6 people for a total of at least 21 meals. Thank you very much for your time and for visiting my kitchen. I really enjoyed it, and I hope to see you again soon.